are all the things that we do consider in our OBE framework. We shall have a proper curriculum. Then based on the curriculum, we need to formulate our statements of vision, mission, POs, PSOs, and based on these, you will have certain subjects. Based on the curriculum, you will have some subjects, and for each subject, you will be writing your course outcomes. And based on these outcomes and assessing your level of students, by knowing your level of students, you need to come up with suitable teaching strategies which are supposed to be implemented, and how my teaching strategies have helped my students in gaining certain level of knowledge that I shall know by conducting a assessment followed by evaluation, and this will give me a clear idea of where the student will stand. Then followed by, you will have a feedback which will help you to take up what are the lacuna, understanding the lacuna, what are your strong points, where you can improve yourself. So it gives a clear idea of all these. And finally, you as a teacher can come to a conclusion that these areas need certain improvement, and here is where I need to work upon to still fetch certain more level of attainment. Okay, and finally you are with improvements, and if you implement these improvements, you will land again to the point wherein you can achieve your vision, mission statements, you can achieve your outcomes, course outcomes. If you achieve your outcomes, again it is a reverse process, bottom up. Okay, from course outcomes, again you can achieve your statements of vision and mission. Okay, so in the mean process, this assessment and evaluation have a greater role to play, because only these will tell you what is the understanding of student, in what level is your student, what kind of inputs you're supposed to give to your student. So it acts as that standing measure which will help you out to judge the level of your student. Okay, so coming to the assessment, what is an assessment, what is an evaluation? Okay, assessment is the process of gathering, recording, and you also use the information. You gather the information as a teacher, you record the information, and you suitably use this information in order to achieve something. Okay, information about a learner's response to a given task. Why do you give a task? In order to know what is the level, understanding level of your student. Okay, and then assessment is used for the purpose of improvement in current performance of the student. So it acts as a tool that will help to the student, to know what is his position, what are his drawbacks, and what are the areas that he's supposed to improve to achieve the suitable level of mastery of that particular subject. Now, what is evaluation? Evaluation, you do the same, but you will judge this result. You will judge this result, and this result judgment will be helpful for you to tell you whether you have achieved your objectives, you have achieved the main lines that you have framed. Okay, and the lines upon which you have delivered your content, it will tell you whether you have achieved them or not. So if you will go to the evaluation is a process of gathering, recording, and measuring students' performance for the purpose of, here in assessment, if you see, you just gather, record, and use the information, and here you do this, and you also judge it in order to achieve a standard mark, which will help you to finalize whether you at the final stage you have achieved your level or not. Okay, then evaluation is used for the purpose of grading or awarding division based on set of standards as per university regulations. Coming to the next slide. Now, in general, assessment is an ongoing interactive process in which both the students and teachers are involved. Okay, so this is a continuous work. Assessment is a continuous work which happens internally. Your university exams come under evaluation. Okay, if you go to the highest level, that is the final level wherein you will know that it is achieved or not. Okay, so that level is your evaluation. Evaluation is nothing but you judge. Finally, you judge whether you have achieved or not. Whereas assessment is just collecting the information for knowing whether the student is on par with your instruction methodologies. Okay. The process aims at determining the effectiveness of the performance of the students and the areas of improvement. It also gives you a clear picture of the effectiveness of the performance of students, and it also gives you the areas which require suitable attention for their further improvement. And then the process involves setting up of goals. You set goals, then you collect the information. Collect the information is nothing but you assess the students, you take the assessments, and then using the information for improving the performance of students. So based on this, I can correct my student. No, this is what is the level you are in, and you need to work out this much in order to go to this level. So I can come up to a conclusion. And then in the terminology used, the above kind of assessment is also called as a formative assessment. This kind of assessment is also called as a formative assessment, which we shall discuss in the later section in detail. Okay, now formative assessment and summative assessment. A formative assessment is something which you initially do to your day-to-day teaching and learning, wherein you conduct small class tests, you will give them assignments, then you shall give some group work in order to know at what level are your students standing. And summative assessment is your final examination, wherein students, we can identify what is the level of students. At the end, have you achieved your objective or not? That will help you there. Now, formative assessment. The goal of a formative assessment is to monitor student learning, to provide ongoing feedback. It gives you an ongoing feedback that can be used by the instructor to improve the teaching and by students to improve their learning. So it helps instructor to improve teaching and students can improve their learning. Okay, and then more specifically, formative assessments do these. Okay, help students to identify strengths and weakness and target areas that need to work and which need some improvement, and then help faculty to recognize where the students are struggling and address problems immediately by modifying their teaching methods or assignments or conducting tutorials or remedial classes. So you can know what is the level of student, what is the strength, weakness, and what are the target areas. Then you can know where the student is actually facing a problem. And just by changing your teaching methodologies, you can have a corrective measure. And finally, the student, this helps your student. And then summative assessment. What a summative assessment is. Now, the summative assessment is used to evaluate the student's learning outcome at the end of instructional unit or course. So at the end of the course, whatever you conduct is called as a summative. See, the name itself tells you form. When you are forming the knowledge level of the student, all those assessments you conduct are called as formative assessments, which help you to take quick action in order to implement any corrective measures, changes, or you can give them some additional material. So it helps you there, which is called as a formative assessment, whereas the summative assessment is done generally at the last part of your course. Okay, by comparing it against some standard benchmark. So this is what we do. And then summative assessments are often of high stakes, which means that they have high point value. Examples of summative assessments are a sessional test, midterm exam, end semester examination, final project, a seminar paper. So these are all your summative assessments. Sometimes you use them by the same name, summative assessment and your evaluation. And then coming to formative assessment. What is a formative assessment? As you all know, what do we do in formative assessment? We collect the data, and this data can be used for the improvement of students' performance. Okay, formative assessment is concerned with process, while summative assessment or evaluation focuses on the product, end product, or whatever is the attainment. Finally, have you attained your goals up to a particular level which is framed by your institution, by your department. Okay, you set certain standard levels of your department, you set some standard levels for your institution, and your university will set you certain level of working. So you need to stand up to that particular level, which will be generally helped by your summative assessment. And then next is diagnostic assessment. This is very, very, very important. I hope most of the colleges do conduct courses called as bridge courses. Yes, these bridge courses is a kind of your diagnostic assessment. This is a remediation for remediation which we implement after conducting a diagnostic assessment. Remedial measure that we implement after conducting a diagnostic assessment, which is your bridge course. Okay, now what do you do in a bridge course? First, whenever I want to teach a subject to my student in next semester, this semester what do? I should first, at the end of this semester, I will be given my subject. Then I need to know what are the prerequisites of this subject based on which I shall prepare my course file, and I should equally know at what level are my students coming into my class. Yes, and how should be my instruction delivery methodology. For knowing this, you conduct some prerequisite test, which is called as a diagnostic assessment. And to come up with the lacuna of this diagnostic assessment, you conduct your bridge courses. Assessment for learning can have a strong positive impact on student learning, achievement, motivation, and self-esteem, because only if he knows on what level he stands, then alone he can work upon. Without having a clear picture of where he's standing, just a vague information is not at all entertained in your OBE. And then classroom assessment techniques, which are called as formative assessments, where you can use some quizzes, you can choose problem solving, MCQs, and you can also use splickers. Splickers are, you can use them online. This is also one kind of online assessment. If we have time, we shall see it today, else we shall see it tomorrow. Then home assignments for formative assessments. Which kind of home assignments you give? You give numerical and application problems, mini projects, then analysis of case studies, long answer questions. Now, when I give some assignment, I should understand that not all my students are at a particular learning level. What is my reason to give an assignment? It is for the student to know at what level he stands, and for me to implement suitable teaching learning methodology. Yes, so for him, if suppose he's just an average student, then he alone can't make his assignment. Now, when he can't make his assignment at the end of the day, I know all of us know that what will happen. He just copies his assignment from his friends or someone. Instead, if we are pairing them up with peer groups, this is very important. Peer group study is very important. If you're pairing them with a peer group, and if they do some teamwork, they can normally come up to certain level of their knowledge standard. Easily certain gaps will be fulfilled just like that. Just by being in the peer team, he can have a clear idea of the subject. Okay, when he's actually working on that particular problem, he can have a good idea on that particular subject. So the way you pair students is also important, and this fetches him for a proper submission of his assignment instead of just copying and pasting. And you might ask me, madam, what happens in this group study? Again, the same thing will happen. They might submit the same assignment. They may copy and submit the same assignment. Though he copies, when he sits for a discussion, he shall have an idea. So the one who is in level 1 might go to level 2. Though he is copying and giving, his IQ is increasing. And then methods of evaluation or summative assessment. So how do you evaluate or give your summative assessments? That is by this we have already discussed, by sessional tests, by mid-sem examinations, end semester examinations, and on. And now some of the good practices practices in assignment? What are the assessment? What are good practices which are to be incorporated in giving an assessment? One is embedding assessed tutorials to encourage students to keep on top of the learning. You need to give this assessed tutorials back to your students. Only if it is given back to them after properly evaluating their papers, then they will have an idea of what is missing, what is to be done, then based on which they shall work upon. And then use of peer assignments to help students understand what is being asked. Yes, if you are discussing one peer assignment in the class or assessment in the class, then that will surely help students to know what is the concept which they have missed in order to attain that particular level of perfection. As we have seen in our rubric, we had levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, if suppose I want to put him under the level A, he need to possess something. Only when this level 4 student knows what level A has done, he shall work upon the lacking skills and can upgrade to the next level. And then use of phased assignments to encourage students to take notice of the feedback. You need to have phased assignments. And then designing regular small assessments to encourage students to distribute their efforts more evenly across their studies. You need to give them regular small assessments. Okay, and then you have two different kinds of assessment again. Again, this is another breakup, which is criteria referenced and the other one is norm referenced. Now, coming to this criteria referenced assessment. Okay, what does this do? It measures the student's performance based on mastery of specific set of skills or knowledge. It measures what the student knows and doesn't know at the time of the assessment. The student's performance is not compared to any other student. That is the major rule that you're supposed to follow if you want to give a criterion referenced assessment. Okay, you want to measure the performance? Very good. You can measure by giving some activity, right? The student can know what are his backdrops, and finally, this should not be compared to the performance of any other student. Okay, and then certain examples are sessional tests. Madam, here we compare students level with other levels. Sessional tests we do compare, and mid-semester examinations we do compare. End semester examinations for us to have a holistic understanding of what student level is, we shall compare. Okay, and then next is a norm referenced assessment. Now, norm referenced assessment is this example can give you a better understanding. GATE exam, JEE advanced. You want to know on what level are different students standing, and based on their level of mastery, you should choose them into your institution. Means it is the exam which is only for comparison. And coming back to this, now you can have a clear understanding. Though it is an exam, though in mid-exams we compare students, but we don't make any such selection criteria. Okay, we don't take any such selection criteria. Whereas in your norm-referenced assessment, we use selection criteria. Okay, so if you see this, measures a student's performance in comparison to the performance of same age students on the same assessment. Okay, so this is what is your norm-referenced assessment. And then how should you keep your assessment? Here are few principles which you are supposed to follow. What are those principles? Principle 1 is criterion referenced and outcome based assessment. Okay, assessment should be criterion referenced to the extent that every student must achieve some threshold minimum in each learning outcome. Yes, it should be certain criteria referenced. Okay, that they are supposed to reach to that expected learning outcome to pass that particular course. Okay, and then It measures a student's performance based on mastery of specific set of skills or knowledge. Okay, it should also act as a performance indicator. And then the student's performance is not compared to other students' performance on the same assessment. Here we are not to compare, but just to tell them on what level they stand. Our main aim is to tell them on what level do they stand. Whereas JEE and all other competitive exams that you conduct are comparative examinations, where each and every student you compare the level of their knowledge. Yes, and then coming to your principle 2, which is formative and summative assessments. Okay, now formative and summative assessment should be incorporated into programs to ensure that the purpose of assessment are adequately addressed. Many programs may also wish to include diagnostic assessments. Now, if your college is conducting a bridge course, now you can go and tell, this is why we conduct our bridge course. Before, we need to conduct a test for our students on prerequisites. This is also important for you to implement in your colleges. Before your semester starts, at the previous, at the time of your previous semester, when all the exams of students are over, then you need to conduct a diagnostic assessment, which is generally based on the prerequisite knowledge of the subjects which are coming next year. So that test is to be conducted, and as a corrective measure, what you do, we conduct a bridge course which will boost the skill set of the students to the next level, which are helpful for them in taking up a course for next semester at a higher level of knowledge. Yes, so that will be more fetching for them, and you can easily cover the gaps by your bridge courses. Okay, so formative and summative assessment should be properly incorporated. And then diagnostic or pre-instruction assessments. It is important for the teacher to know the prerequisite knowledge of student. See, this is very important, as I told you, in outcome-based education. Okay, it is important for the teacher to know the prerequisite knowledge of the student in order to understand the present course content. For that purpose, the teacher has to conduct a written test on the prerequisite knowledge, as just we have discussed before, needed for the understanding for understanding the present core, and assess I'm sorry, just give me a second. Understanding the present course and assess the student's level of prerequisite knowledge. Then he fills the gap by review in the first 2 classes, and then only proceeds to the instruction of the present course. Okay, so generally you can either go for having certain kind of a small session in your lecture, or you can conduct as a well formulated module, you can conduct a class for them. And then validity. Assessment should be valid. Validity ensures that the assessment tasks are assessment tasks and associated criteria effectively measure students' attainment of intended learning outcomes at appropriate levels. So this should be valid. Now, if I want to assess some skill set of student, I just can't give a vague assessment which never takes into account my course objective or the skill set which the student is supposed to have, then that goes in vague. Such assignments are not at all entertained. You are supposed to prepare an assessment which has certain validity, and that will help you to know what is the level of student, and it should also help you to measure the attainment of your learning outcomes. And then principle 5 is reliability. Reliability means how much can you depend on your assessments? What is the dependence on your assessments? Now, reliability is assessments should be reliable and consistent. This is very important. There is a need for assessment to be reliable, and this requires a clear and consistent process for setting, marking, grading, and moderation of assignments and question papers. So your assessment should be very much helpful and reliable for you in order to get your outcomes, and equally that should help you to set your question papers, grades, and your
voice is not
assignments.
audible. Hello.
So now, is it audible? Hello. Hello. So now is it audible, sir?
Yeah, madam.
Where did you skip my topic? Is it on principle 4? Validity? Where did you skip my voice, sir? Is it principle 4?
Principle 4, madam.
Principle 4, validity.
Yeah.
Did you listen the complete thing? Because these are the points which as a faculty you are supposed to have an idea of, and they will play a major role in your OBE. Okay, next, let me repeat. Now, am I audible? Please, can someone confirm me? Am I audible now?
Yeah, it is audible.
Thank you so much. Okay, and next is validity. Previously, we have seen that we conduct bridge courses in order to fill the gaps. And then next is validity. Validity means this should help you in getting a proper understanding regarding your learning outcomes at a proper level. And then coming to the reliability. Reliability means assessment should be reliable and consistent. Okay, then there is a need. Could you please put your system on mute, sir? The voice is disturbing me. Someone there, your voice is disturbing me. Could you please put yourself on mute? Thank you. Okay, so assessment should be reliable and consistent. There is a need for assessment to be reliable, and this requires a clear, consistent process for the setting, marking, grading, and moderation of assignments and question papers. Okay, so reliably you should be able to depend on your assignment or assessment, okay, for checking it with your learning outcomes. And also you should be in a position to set your papers, to grade, and also to moderate the assignments and your question papers. And then if a particular assessment was totally reliable, assessors acting independently using the same criteria and mark scheme would come to exactly the same judgment about a piece of given work. Okay, so if suppose my assessment is totally reliable, then if suppose I have another faculty using the same tools, using the same criteria, using the same scheme, scheme of evaluation, he need to get the same judgment. We both of us should approach to a same judgment. Okay, and then in the interest of quality assurance, standards, and fairness, whilst recognizing that complete objectivity is impossible to achieve. When it comes to summative assessment, it is a goal worth aiming for it. Okay, now when you talk about this quality assurance, okay, you just can't completely achieve whatever you have formulated. It is not possible. You can't achieve anything to a level of 100% at the highest level. When you come to highest level, you can't achieve at this particular level. And there is another thing. If suppose by chance you have achieved, they'll tell you, no, you did not set them to a proper level. Now, as you are working good, you need to again increase your standards. So based on which again you shall reformulate your statements of vision, mission, then you shall reformulate your course outcomes, and all this will happen. So no chance that you shall you shall reach a point of 100%. But when you come to this, you need to aim for your goal. And then explicitness in terms of learning outcomes and assessment criteria is vitally important in attempting to achieve reliability. Explicitness is very important, means clarity, clearness in terms of your learning outcome. Without any second thought, you need to have a clear picture of everything. Okay, so that is very important to achieve a proper reliability, even for students. And then principle 6 is inclusiveness and equity. Okay, assessment should be inclusive and equitable as far as possible. Okay, now there should not be any compromise in the standards. Okay, inclusive and equitable assessment should ensure that the task and procedure do not disadvantage any group or any individual. You shall rely on it for information. It should be fair, as far as possible. It should be fetching for every student. Okay, it should not be inequitable. And then principle 7 is integral part of course design. Assessment should be an integral part. This is very important. So when you next time, I hope most of the good colleges which are following a proper format of your course files, it has got assessment. Okay, so this assessment is an integral part of your course design that will fetch you your learning outcomes. Assessment should be an integral part of course design and should relate directly to the learning outcomes of the course. And then assessment tasks should primarily reflect the nature of the discipline or subject, but should also ensure that students have the opportunity to develop a range of generic skills and capabilities. It is not only that I restrict my assessment only to my subject and I neglect all the other inclusions in different disciplines. Okay, it should be fetching to all other disciplines and help to improve certain skills in your students, certain capabilities in your students. And then transparency. Next principle is transparency. Information about assessment should be explicit. Explicit means you shouldn't have any doubt. It should be crystal clear, easily understandable. And then accessible and transparent. Information should be explicit, accessible to everyone, and it should be transparent. Then clear, accurate, consistent, and timely information of assessment, tasks, and procedures should be made available to your students, staff, or other external assessors or examiners. Now, this is where we need to have a store of our assessments. This is where comes the importance to have your store of assignments. And then manageability. The amount of assessed work should be manageable. The scheduling of assignments and the amount of assessed work should provide a reliable and valid proof of achievement without overloading either staff or your students. Okay, I need not give an extra burden to my students, giving them so many assignments. Okay, that small number of assignments which is actually helpful for them in scoring good shall be perfect for me. And then timely feedback. Feedback is all what is important. Again, in outcome-based education, feedback has got a major role to play in OBE, wherein only by feedback you can take any corrective steps or you can make any new changes. You can actually know what the student wants and based on which you can deliver the content. Okay, so next is timely feedback. Timely feedback promotes learning and facilities improvement. Not only learning, but also the facilities which are supposed to be provided to the student. It should be an integral part of the assessment process. Students are entitled to feedback on submitted formative assessments, tasks, and on summative tasks wherever it is appropriate. And then the nature, extent, and the timing of feedback for each assessment task should be made clear to the students in advance. Okay, you need to tell them what is the nature, what is the extent, what is the time feedback, for which particular period of time you're supposed to give the feedback, and how are you supposed to give a feedback. Now, when student has it doesn't have a good experience with teacher, he generally gives a negative feedback. Instead, you can counsel, you can mentor, you can guide the students, telling that this is your lacuna, this is where you're supposed to improve. This is how the students can also give their suggestions. And then different types of questions for assessment in a theory course. Now, what are the different types of questions? How do you assess the student in a theory course? Now, these are different ways wherein we assess our students. If you're seeing on the screen, you have MCQs, short answer questions, quizzes, long answer questions, practical case studies, numerical, applicative, and real world problems. Okay, now most of the institutions, they are going for a paperless work wherein they are relying more on this LMS systems. Okay, learning management systems. Okay, and some teachers are nowadays preferring more. And if you have taken FDPs on this platform or any other platform, even here in FDPs, we are choosing this online platform as a tool in order to assess your learning level or understanding level of this particular FDP. Wherein that gives me a very quick answer. For me to judge all of these many participant papers, it is very difficult, right? Instead, if I have system wherein which gives me a quick answer on response, then that will reduce my burden. So most of these are nowadays shifting to online medium. Okay, they're now shifting to online medium, except for your short answer questions, long answer questions, and your problems. And then alignment of assessment with learning outcomes. Alignment means they should stand on par with one another. What is the learning outcomes that I've framed for my topic, or at a course level, what are the outcomes that I have framed? Coming to my topic level, what are the outcomes that I have framed? Then coming to student level or this particular class level, what are the outcomes that I have framed? So all these should stand at a common level. Now in my course level, if I set my course outcome at a create level, and then unit outcome if I put at normal apply level, that doesn't suit good. So all of them should stand on the same level. This proportioning is generally called as the alignment of assessment. Okay, now the assessment questions must be prepared in such a way that in every mode of assessment, every question is mapped with one of the learning outcomes. I hope yesterday you have done this assignment wherein you have mapped with learning outcomes. Or I think ma'am will be giving you today this assignment. What was the assignment that you people have done yesterday? If I can know from any of the participants there. Can I know from any participant what is the
learning outcomes and some topics
learning outcomes? Did you map them? Did you map them?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
ma'am.
We are not mapped, we have just reframed it.
You have, okay. Then taxonomy levels you have written?
Yes.
Have you written? And
Yes.
that is all?
Then for the particular topic, we will choose some different sources. Internet material.
That's good. That's good to hear. Thank you. Okay, so every question should be mapped with learning outcome, whatever assessment you are giving. Just as how you will prepare your question paper. Most of the institutes have a habit wherein question papers, when you give question papers to students, you will also mention what is the taxonomy level in the question papers. Now this is a new format where most of the colleges are following, wherein in the question paper they are mentioning the taxonomy level and also the course outcome, which outcome of the course is your question matching to. Okay, this is the new type of paper which most of the colleges are following nowadays. Okay, so assessment question should be mapped with your learning outcomes. Only when it is mapped, you will know that whether it is falling under the category of learning outcomes or you are diverting from your actual line of outcomes. Then, next, this is a format wherein you map the assessment questions at different unit levels. Every unit will have some learning outcomes if you're observing. Okay, and each assessment question will be mapped with learning outcome of that particular unit. Okay, and then coming to the next example. Okay, here it has got 4 learning outcomes. Then 6 learning outcomes, and here we are doing it at course level. Okay, here we are doing this at mapping this question with the course level outcome. I hope all of you are clear with this. First, you shall formulate your course outcomes based on which, again, in alignment to your course outcomes, for a topic selected to teach in today's class, I need to frame some outcomes, topic outcomes or that particular unit outcomes. Okay, that outcomes should be mapped with your assessment question. And then alignment of evaluation. Alignment of evaluation. Now, how do you align your evaluation? You need to check. Now, assessment we have checked, right? When you are giving assignments to your students or assessment questions to your students, you are mapping them with the unit outcomes, course outcomes, or that particular module outcomes. Same as the way at the end of that particular course or that particular semester, you are going to give an assessment wherein all those questions will also be mapped equally with the outcomes which you have framed for. Okay. Now, what are the guidelines that you follow for giving assignments to the students? These are few guidelines that you're supposed to follow. What are those guidelines? The assignment length must be such that it needs 2 hours of students' time outside the class for every 1 hour. Okay, so for every 1 hour of teaching, students should have 2 hours of practice. In such a way, you need to design your assessment. I hope all of you are taking these very clearly and trying to understand this, because these are very, very important for you. And now, it is preferable to give assignment after completing 2 to 3 hours of class work. Okay. When you finish off 2 to 3 hours of your class work, you are supposed to give one assignment so that they will be in touch with your subject. Can someone who's there, please do mute your microphones, sir. Request participants to please mute yourself. Thank you. It is preferable to give an assignment after completing 2 to 3 hours of classwork. Okay, that means one assignment on an average of 1 week, you give them one assignment so that the students are in continuous touch with the subject and they don't lose the basics. And then each assignment must be given some weightage. This is very important. Each assignment must be given some weightage, even by a small percentage of marks, and all the assignments put together must be given some weightage of marks. Individual assignment should have marks, and on a total you're supposed to give marks. That is why we at Hyderabad, ours is a university, JNTUH affiliated college, wherein we have 5 marks for our assignments, student assignments in the internal valuations. And then there are 2 challenges and issues for teachers regarding assignments. The first challenge is how to prevent copying of assignments, and then answering among students. Okay. Now, this is, as I told you, when you make these peer groups, that will be a very big solution for you. When you pair up them with a peer group and you keep continuously screwing the peer person, like the one who has got good knowledge, no, you keep screwing him up. What happened? What happened? What is the work that you have done? What is the status of your work? When you start just screwing him up, what will happen is he'll ultimately influence his team and they can work together to achieve the level of outcome that you have framed. And then choose problems for assignments for which solutions are not available in the textbook. Yesterday, if you remember, Sir Arun Kumar Tangirala has told you that it should not just be copy-paste answers. Okay, it should not just be copy-paste answers wherein you are just doing an information transfer from one student to another. It should not be like that. You should give them certain period to spend with those problems wherein they will gain enough knowledge about the subject. And then, if the problems are very interesting and useful, change the numerals and or modify the problems slightly and include them in the assignments. And if you feel some kind of question is very useful and interesting, then at that point of time you can change the numericals and you can slightly vary the problem or that question and give it as an assignment for your students. differential group assignments. Now, when you have a large class and if you give a single assignment in OBE, that is also not valid. In outcome-based education, in order to meet your outcome, that is also not valid, wherein you give one single assignment entire class. You need to divide your class into certain groups, and each group of students should get one kind of assignment, wherein you don't have repetitions totally, or partial repetitions of questions can be there. Like that, you're supposed to give the assignment to your students at different understanding levels. That is equally important. At different understanding levels, you need to frame your assessment paper. And then numerical problems, application problems, case studies are made different for each group by changing numericals, contents, and slight modifications. While grouping, for the purpose of assignments, group the students in such a way that fast learners are in the group, moderate learners in a group, and slow learners in a group. Now, this talks about differentiating based on their IQ levels. Now, when I want to give a tough assignment, I just can't give it to a normal level student. Okay, in such cases, I can't group a team. Okay, so if it is really challenging, then in such cases, for competent students, I can frame one separate assignment wherein all competent students can be grouped and they can be given an assignment. Or if you want a holistic development of your class, then peer grouping is also important. You can go with peer grouping if you want a holistic development. And if you want to give fast learners a very good activity to perform, then in such cases you can go for rating them based on their learning levels. And then fast learners do not copy from others, as there is no need. Moderate learners together struggle. Slow learners also struggle and take help from fast learners, but it is not mechanically copying. This is what I was all talking about. Okay, though they struggle with the answers and try to understand, and finally at the end of the day they try to take the answers from them, but as they are in this discussion, they will certainly have an idea of that particular assignment or assessment. And then preparation of differential assignments. Okay, preparation of differential assignments. Now you need to change the numericals and change the type of questions or change the level of ease of that particular question, so that each and every group of students will have different assignments. Okay, so if you're observing this, original copy will be made by the teacher. Changing numerals and context, etc., can be done by the bright students in the class. Now, when we were talking about rubrics, I told you you can involve peer students to make rubrics. Same as the way here also you can involve peer students to assign tasks to their friends of slightly lower level, so that their understanding can also be improved, and this particular student who's changing numericals can also get a good idea of subject, as because he's working on the subject. Okay, and then peer evaluation of assignments. Now sometimes what will happen, I can't judge 60 assignments in one single day, or I can't immediately give the answer, give the level of all students. It will be quite difficult for me. Now as a faculty of engineering colleges, we know how many other burdens also we are supposed to take up apart from teaching, right? We have many other things to manage in our department related to college, related to students. Okay, so that will be quite difficult for us to handle large classrooms. In such cases, what we do is you give these assignments as an exchange. Now this student will correct the assignment of that, and that fellow will correct the assignment of some others. And teacher should be evaluating. Surprise visits I should conduct, and I need to check and on what basis are they assessing. So this will also help them to gain proper understanding of that particular subject. Okay, now thinking like that, you just can't completely rely on your students, but partly you can rely on them, and you need to monitor this. Okay, and then 10% marks of assignment weightage marks will be given for the group for correct evaluation of assignments and integrity of evaluation of the assignments. If suppose a team is working upon, then you can surely give them some bonus of marks. That will again attract them to keep themselves engaged in these activities. Okay, surely we need some perks, right? When we are working for some place, surely we do expect that our extra work which we have done should be recognized by our college, by our head of department, and they should appreciate us. Okay, so same is the way even these students, those students who are working will certainly think that their efforts are needed to be appreciated. So if suppose you give them a bonus of marks on a point of 1, 2, 3, like 4 or 5 point scale, then surely they will keep this practice and they will work with still more effort. Only I can tell you, only if their efforts are recognized, next time they will work in a better manner, whether it is student or a teacher, right? Only if our efforts are recognized, we shall work next time with a better level. Yes, so same is the way with our students too. And then if the assignments are conducted in this manner, 1/4 of the sessional marks may be allotted to assignment answers. Suppose 40 marks are allotted to continuous assessment. Out of this, 10 marks may be allotted to assignments. Okay, so 1/4 mark shall be given to your sessional assessments. And then assignment must be given at a unit level, module level, and a course level. You need to break up your assignment. Now, same is the way as you have formulated the outcomes or you have prepared your question papers or anything as such, you need to categorize the importance based on course level. Please remember these three. These are very important. Okay, course level, module level, unit level. I'm again repeating this: course level, module level, and unit level. At these three levels, you're supposed to prepare your assignments. And then each question in every assignment must be mapped to one of the learning outcome. Okay, now in previous examples, if you remember, I have shown you, and you have also done it from your side, wherein each thing will be mapped with the module level outcome or a unit level outcome or a course level outcome. For me, the main preference should be, now as because we are going in formative stages, I should go with unit level. Or if suppose I am preferring as a module, then this particular module I have achieved this much. So in order to have a brief understanding of this particular module which is taught to your students, then in such cases you can frame an assignment, and this assignment should be mapped with your outcomes. And I'm telling you, nothing will be accepted in vague. If you just give assignment questions, it will not be accepted in OBE. Okay, whenever you're giving your assignments, you are supposed to map your assignments with outcomes. Only if you're mapping them with your outcomes, I'm telling you, they will be accepted. Else in OBE, your assignments will not at all be accepted. You are supposed to map them with the outcomes. The question which you have should be mapped with outcomes, because our framework is only OBE. Okay, outcome. Based on what shall I judge your assignment? Only based on this particular outcome that you have framed. So based on the outcome frame, you're supposed to set your assignment. Okay, and this process will be helpful as a peer member for me to review whether you are delivering a proper teaching learning content in your classroom, and is the student be able to take up what you have taught. Fine, so it is very much helpful there. And then peer evaluation of assignments. Okay, as we have discussed this. And then module level, course level assignments must include about 10 to 15% of challenging problems. Okay, if you just give a copy paste question, that is of no use either for the student or for you. Okay, so which is why you need to have problems which are challenging enough, which gives them enough opportunity to learn something new from your assignment or apply it in a new case. And then guidelines for setting MCQs. How are you supposed to set your multiple choice questions? Keep both the stem of question and the options as brief as possible. If the options require more than 3 words to state, list them on separate lines. Okay, when you give an MCQ, generally you don't frame big sentences, right? Each options that you give to left and that you give to right, you restrict the number of words. Same as the way you're supposed to restrict them to the stem words, and then distribute the correct response randomly among options. Okay, and then make the distractors plausible and equivalent in structure and length. This is important. You need to make your distractors plausible and equivalent in your structure and length. And then make sure that the correct option is not always the longest one, because students are better in judging. Yesterday, few of you, I have seen you answering when sir asked for who's intelligent, either student or faculty, then you were all telling no sir, students are only intelligent, so they can easily guess. So it should not be a guesswork, rather we should have an understanding of what they have learned. That is all is your main purpose of giving an assessment.
Ma'am,
Right?
your voice is breaking.
Now, madam. Hello. Hello, ma'am. Now is it audible? Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it breaking now? Is there any disturbance now?
No.
No disturbance.
Thank you so much. And thank you for getting it to my notice. Sorry for the disturbance. And then you need to make sure that correct option is always not the longest one. And then you should avoid options like all of the above, none of the above, always, never. You should not take up these options in your MCQs. And then avoid negatives in the stem, and more importantly, double negatives. Okay, so see here, double negative is to be understood like incorrect is only a wrong word. See here, see this example. Which of the following is not correct? Not incorrect. I can just use not correct or incorrect. Incorrect is one single word which is telling that it is not correct. Why should I use not incorrect? Okay, so you're not supposed to use such negatives directly, and most of the times you need to avoid negatives. Instead, you ask for positive statements. Okay, which is the correct option? What fetches you what? Okay, you need to ask correct options, and you need to avoid this double negative. If you are observing this, see here, not incorrect. Not is one word which alone will be sufficient. You can just tell not correct. Why you are supposed to give a not incorrect? That's wrong, right? And then consider presenting a short paragraph, chart, or data table followed by several test items related to it. Okay, you need to present a short paragraph, chart, or a data table which is followed by test items. Okay, this will be helpful for you in assessing the higher cognitive levels of the student. And then multiple choice questions can be set at different cognitive levels like remember, understand, apply, analyze. Okay, so at these levels you can set your MCQs, but you can't make them to your create level, evaluate level, right? You can't expect student to create something in an MCQ. What can he create in an MCQ? Nothing. So they might be restricted to level of analyze. Mostly apply will be sufficient, and if you want to extend, you can go for analyze level. Okay. You shall restrict maximum your MCQs to your analyze level. And then coming to the next, MCQs different cognitive levels. Now you have the level, stand level, apply level. As we are discussing just before, I told you, you need to omit the levels of evaluate and create. Leaving those, you can set your MCQ at these levels. Remember level. Remember level means factual data. Factual data, you have different types of data, right? Factual, conceptual. Yes, so you can ask a factual data which has got a single answer, which has got a unique answer. And then understand level. At understand level, what can I ask? Present alternative statements of theorem or alternative interpretations of an observation or experiment, outcome, or some alternative illustrations of any concept or any theory. Okay, and then at apply level, state a problem and alternative solutions as options. Okay, where the student will get enough chance to choose one correct option out of them. And then at analyze level. At analyze level, what are you supposed to do? Describe a system and ask the students to choose the best prediction of its behavior among different options. Okay, which will choose good? In this specific case, which shall choose good? Okay, so describe a system and we shall ask the students to best predict of what is best option in that case. Okay, that is one. And then types of multiple choice questions. What are the different types of multiple choice questions? 4 options for a question are given. The options are in about 2 to 3 words. Only one option is correct. This is the general trend which we have seen following. And then options are in form of statements. Okay, first you had one word, single word options, wherein you had to select one single answer. And then other thing is you will have statements of which you shall choose a correct statement. And then the last one is, which is really at a higher level, if you have taken courses on your SWAYAM and NPTEL platforms, you have come across with such questions wherein you have more than one correct answer for a question. Yes, you will have more than one correct answer for a MCQ question. That is of a higher level. Okay, so such questions can also be set. One is you can set a question which has 4 options and which will have only single word, and other questions will have statements, and the student needs to select one of those statements, and the last one will be a question which is having more than one correct option, which is generally a higher level question. And then so you can set them at different weightages depending upon the level of difficulty. You can sometimes for the same question you can give 2 marks. If you are increasing the difficulty, you can increase the marks. So sorry, you can change the weightages based on the mark. And then this is one such example, and this is as following. Okay, wherein you have different options to select. Now in our childhood we used to have MCQs wherein we used to put arrows and link one answer to the other answer. Okay, which had only one correct answer. Now if you're observing this sorry, just a second please. If you're observing this massive following question here, for one set, if I want to select one option, see how many number of options I have. Okay, so it is quite difficult for me to come up with this MCQ. And then advantages of multiple choice questions. Okay, evaluations of answers is easy. It is useful especially in a large class for sessional test or unit test. A part of evaluation may be by MCQs. Okay, you can come up with a multiple choice question. Now, if you're observing this is a special case, the previous case which we have seen, this is also a multiple choice question which had a mass the following. Yes, so we are imbibing 2 things to make it, to increase the difficulty level of this question. So same is the way. Now, this is a tool. Generally, you can implement this for your large classroom. You can jumble the questions, you can jumble the answers. Yes, you can jumble the order of your questions. This will be a game that if you're taking up your SWAYAM courses, wherein each student will not have same questions sometimes though you have same questions, the order will be jumbled. This generally is a practice of your SWAYAM courses, right? Why am I using this name of SWAYAM? Because most of you are taking up these courses, which is why I'm giving this example so that it can fetch you easily. Okay, and then online testing and evaluation is possible with multiple choice questions. Yes, this reduces my time. As I told you, most of us being very busy with our non-academic work, being a teacher. So I think this saves a lot of time. Okay, online evaluation. Okay, and then there is one more disadvantage, that is unless we put proper effort, this will not be at a correct level. Okay, and then difficult to test at evaluate and create levels. You can't use this at evaluate and create levels. So this is what is the procedure wherein you will frame your multiple choice questions. Okay, these are all the guidelines that I've given you. And then now how do you frame your short answer questions? How is that? We frame our short answer questions. Test only one objective in each question. This is very important. Okay, you just can't include 2 course outcomes, 3 course outcomes in one question, or 2 session outcomes or 2 module outcomes, topic outcomes, lecture outcomes. You just can't put 2 or 3 outcomes mapping for one question. Okay, some rare cases you can go with 2 outcomes, but it is better that you restrict it. Okay. Test only one objective in each question and then indicate an expected response length for each question. You need to tell them. Now, if they start building their answer, it goes to 2 pages, 3 pages. Now, what do you do with a short question having 2 to 3 pages? That is of no use, right? Expected outcome from a student, right? What are they expected to write in that particular question? Your question need to be framed well that tells them what is expected from them, what answer is expected. If you're telling explain this particular concept, okay, explain this particular working principle, then they need to be told till what level should they explain them. Okay, how many lines, or you restrict the number of words. Okay, so you need to make it clear for the student to understand what is expected from them, what are they supposed to answer. Okay, and then allot 2 to 3 minutes for a question requiring 2 to 3 sentences to answer. Okay, so these are also you're supposed to include, and then glance through a few responses of each student, each question, and then start awarding marks of questions for all students. You just can't directly come to a conclusion regarding marks by seeing one single paper. Okay, so you need to first see 2 to 3 papers before you start your corrections. To have a clear idea for better judgment of your students' marks, you need to have 2 to 3 papers at your glance, wherein 2 papers of top level students, then mediocre level students, the last layer of students, that is your slow learners. Okay, if suppose you see 2 papers as such, then it will give you a clear idea on what basis can you correct their papers, right? And then keep student identities anonymous while evaluating answer scripts so that subjectivity may be avoided. Now, when you actually get their name on your paper, your mind tells, okay, he writes well, give him this mark, finish. You just can't go deep into what he has answered. Okay, don't have that ideas about the student. Properly, you need to evaluate. As a teacher, you're expected to evaluate the student's paper in a proper way. So keep their identity anonymous, and properly you need to evaluate their scripts. And then before including discussion questions, show the class a few illustrative questions, typical, good and bad responses to them, and how you will evaluate them. Now, before you give them these questions, which includes discussion or which includes a brief passage writing, then you are supposed to show them a few questions which are having good responses, which are having bad responses, already answered papers. You're supposed to show them. With that, they will have a brief idea how to work upon and what are they supposed to present. And then, how are you supposed to set your question papers? We have seen the previous one wherein short answer questions and MCQs we have also covered. And now we shall see the setting up of question papers for a theory course. Okay, this is generally a sessional test or an end semester examination. Now, if suppose I am preparing a question paper, what are the things that I should keep in mind? First of all, I should take into consideration my outcomes, expected outcomes. I have made some outcomes. Matching that, I know what content I have delivered to my students. Now that content which I have delivered should be assessed by me. I should know what I have delivered. I should know what my students have learned from my delivery. Yes, so based on the outcome framed and your content delivery and that what you have seen them during the formative stages by the help of this formative assignments, you shall give them a suitable question that will map your outcomes, and also it should be a proper concoction covering every unit of that particular course. Yes, and then if you are observing the guidelines, the entire syllabus for the given sessional test or end semester exam must be covered in the question paper. Yes, so you need to take up the entire syllabus. You're not supposed to miss anything. And then the learning outcomes sorry, all the learning outcomes of the modules prescribed for a given sessional test or course outcome in the case of end semester exam must be reflected in the question paper. So whatever module you're prescribing them, you're teaching them, you're lecturing them, all those should be covered in your question paper, and then each question should be mapped with your learning outcome of the course or that particular module of the course. Okay, so as I told you, you need to keep in mind three things. What are your outcomes? What have you taught your class? What was your instructional delivery strategy? What did you deliver them? Then what was their performance? What was their level of understanding during the formative assessments? Okay, having these three in mind, you shall set a question paper which should cover entire syllabus, which should not skip any topic that you have covered in the class, and which should map with the outcomes. Okay, so these are three things that you need to keep in mind. And then choice in answering questions. Now this choice may be given in such a way that the students who made effort to master the entire syllabus and learn the subject as a deep as felt in the learning outcomes must have an advantage over other students. It's general, right? Now when I have worked more than my colleague who is just beside me, then I expect some extra recognition of my work, right? Same is the way the student, those who have worked, who has put on extra effort to achieve the learning outcomes which are framed by you, that student should be at an advantage. You need to check that. You are not supposed, now when you are setting a paper, you should not always take into consideration the lowest level. You need to consider all the three level of students, the slow learners, mediocre learners, and your fast learners. You need to consider all of them, and it should be challenging for all of them, adaptable for all of them. Okay, they need to attempt. It is not that your paper is most suitable for the top level or it is most suitable for the bottom level. It needs to cover all the three grades. And then as an example, a student who mastered only 60% of syllabus should not be able to answer 80% of questions. This is what speaks. Okay, so it depends on the student's coverage of syllabus. Okay, so if he has just mastered 60% of syllabus, he shouldn't be able to answer 80% of the questions. So in that way, you're supposed to set your paper. And then all the guidelines for setting the question paper must be explained to students at the beginning of instruction. Your students should know, right? Now, finally, at the end of the semester or end of the course, they are the ones who need to take up this examination. So they are supposed to know in what way they will be assessed. Okay, they will be evaluated at the end of the course. So these guidelines are to be given to students. And then scheme of evaluation. Now in OBE, scheme of evaluation plays a major role. Even for your internal examinations, you need to prepare your scheme of evaluation. Without scheme of evaluation, your marks will not be valid in outcome-based education, because you need to tell the person based on what quality are you giving him this marks. Yes, as we have seen our rubrics also, based on this quality, I am judging my student to stand at this level. Same is the way you need to have a scheme of evaluation. Morning, a gentleman was asking me, sir, scheme of evaluation is how this is how it will be used, and it is same as your rubric, where rubric is for your assignment, scheme of evaluation is for your examination, final examination. Okay, it must be prepared while setting the question paper itself. The problems must be worked out by teacher. This is important again. As a teacher, you need to work out the problems first, and then you will see what is the approximate time taken, based on which you shall revise the paper, or you can give the same paper. Students should be able to understand the data, they should be able to work upon the problems, and they need to complete the paper. So which is why as a teacher you need to first solve your paper and then you're supposed to present your paper. So prepare your key first. Answer key should be prepared by the teacher first at the time of preparing your question paper in OBE. So scheme of evaluation. Now when I prepare a question paper, I need to see that it should map previous guidelines, as I've told you, it should map with all the learning outcomes. Then it should include all the topics. It should not miss any module. Now same is the way for me to present it to my peer team. I need to have a scheme of evaluation. Most importantly, I need to have a scheme of evaluation and also the solution key sheet for my entire question paper. Okay, and then teacher must put himself or herself in the place of student and calculate the time taken for answering each question by an average learner in the class. It is not with the range of fast learner that you need to compare. You need to compare this with the average learner's level. Okay, wherein every student will be able to take up the question which is given by you in the examination. And then the teacher, questions should not be vague. They should be clear enough that they are understood by all the students in same way as the teacher meant. Okay, I want a student to do this particular activity. It should be understandable to my student in the same way. If suppose I want him to analyze a topic, he should analyze. If I want him to explain, he should explain. I should not make so many twists such that finally at the end of the day, student should not be confused with what I am trying to ask him. Okay, it should be crystal clear enough for the student to understand. Please remember, whatever questions you are setting, it should be clearly understandable at the mediocre level of knowledge of your student. Okay, and then next, questions should direct the students to specific answers. This is important. Okay, now I should not ask any vague question, and all the questions should direct them to the specific answers. If questions are deliberately set with more than answer, it's okay. Okay, you need to take care of them in your scheme of evaluation. If it has more than one answer, then you can take care of it in your scheme of evaluation. And then generally, questions framed at higher cognitive levels. What is that? Okay, generally questions framed at higher cognitive levels are given higher weightage. Okay, when you frame a question at a higher cognitive level, it generally has a higher weightage. And then the question paper may consist of questions at different difficulty levels. Okay, now I think you will be given that task today, assignment. Now, when I set my question paper, two rules I have already explained. First, you need to take care of all the syllabus and all. And second rule is you need to take care of the level of students. Now, third thing is, how are you going to divide your question paper? Lowest difficulty, how much percentage of questions you're adding? If you're observing this line, please. Okay, so lowest difficulty, what is the percentage of questions you're including? Moderate difficulty, what is the percentage of questions you're including? And highest level difficulty, what is the percentage of questions you're including? Now this makes your paper much more interesting even for you to read, right? So if you're including so many things, you might complain me, ma'am, if we are including so many things, it will become difficult. But just think in the point of view wherein you have put year-long hard work to fetch your students to this particular level, and you add up this, no, it shines your paper. Okay, so this is also one such thing which is required for an OBE framework. How much is the level of difficulty of your question paper. What is the percentage of questions under this level of difficulty? Just try to include this in your papers. See how good your papers will be. Okay, try to include these also in your papers. And then the question paper may consist of questions at different cognitive levels. Again, judge your question paper on cognitive levels also. Okay, you can judge your paper also on your cognitive levels, but more than your cognitive levels, this is more important. Okay, percentage of difficulty. And then the English language used in setting questions must be free from grammatical error. Simple sentences may be used and the questions must be easily understood to the students. Okay, so you please avoid unnecessary jargon to the students, which makes them difficult to understand your question. Keep your language simple. Okay, keep your language simple so that they can easily understand the question. And if you want to give some twist to your question, then it is up to you. Okay, you can give twist to your question to make it more interesting to your students. And then while setting the numerical problems, it must be ensured that adequate data is given. Okay, so please check before you give a question paper. Please solve the paper by yourself. Practically solve the paper by yourself, thinking that you are a mediocre student, wherein whatever the data required, please see to it that you provide all the data in your question paper. Okay, for the numerical problems, generally what will happen during the examinations, the people standing inside the rooms will be highly pressurized, wherein madam, this part of the data is missing, that part of the data is missing. Okay, so that will be very difficult. And then next is question paper must have a validity. Okay, it should have validity. If don't make your question papers vague. Now when you want an outcome, when you want to judge the progress in the form of an outcome, you need to have validity of your questions. Your questions should be having proper validity. So for them, you are supposed to mention your learning outcomes against each question. Okay, you're supposed to mention your learning outcomes. Now I'm just reading this for you. Question papers must have validity. It must function as a tool to measure the students' attainment of intended learning outcomes. Okay, so this is the case. And then question paper and scheme of evaluation must be reliable. My scheme of evaluation should not be vague again. This step, this mark, this answer. No, it should be crystal clear for me to understand, and it should be reliable for me to evaluate the scripts of my students. And then in case of MCQs, the guidelines for setting MCQs we have already discussed. Just a second. The paper should not consist of any true or false. See, you are again, if you are cutting short the level of the question, level of complexity, then that shall not be an engineering level question. I hope you are guided by the previous resource persons that when you are setting an engineering question paper, you are supposed to choose a higher cognitive level of knowledge. Okay, so please avoid this true or false questions. And then you just can't use the words write an essay on, write a short notes on, write a brief account of. Okay, so these questions should generally be avoided. If you want him to explain, you ask him explain. If you want him to describe a particular entity, ask him to describe. Okay, so what is the thing that you actually want from student, and is that question appropriate to your learning outcome is also equally important. And then wherever possible, the long answer questions may be split into two parts, and this is a very good thing which all of us are doing nowadays. We're not giving a single long question, instead we are breaking the question into small parts, and each part has got a mark. Okay, if you just ask to give the functioning of this particular instrument or equipment, then he may give few things, he may miss few things. Instead, what do you actually want him to answer? If you are precise, clear a bit in your question, then it will be good in understanding for the student, and you can properly evaluate of what student has answered. And then enough thinking and time must be used in setting a question paper. After setting question paper, the teacher may critically subject the question paper to all guidelines. See, you need to have enough thinking and time. So which is why at the start of your semester alone, you need to prepare your question paper, right? You need to prepare again based on, maybe if suppose your students levels may vary, then you can change the level of difficulty higher or lower based on your students. But you need to have enough time to think about a proper question. And the teacher may critically subject the question paper to all guidelines. So these are the different guidelines, and also compare with the blueprint format and modify wherever it is necessary. Now this becomes the headache of your head. Okay, wherein they will have to, I hope your papers will go to your head for scrutiny, and then they will reach your exam branch before going to your student. Okay, so head has to scrutinize all these. If someone is under the headship, then this has to be taken care of. Then the question paper may be then shown to a colleague who has taught the same course earlier and has experience and expertise of setting a balanced question papers. Now, this colleague can be your head, because he or she is the person with a good experience in working, and he can give you best comments and necessary suggestions or corrections. And based on this, you can modify your question paper and make it ready for your student. So I hope you can understand how difficult it is for a teacher to take up a class, to set an assessment. Okay, so many guidelines we have to follow in order to give a proper question paper in your outcome-based education. And then guidelines for test length. Okay, the teacher should be able to answer completely a problem-solving test in 1/3 of time. This is a deserving quality of teacher, which we expect for. Okay, we expect, being heads, we expect for this kind of teachers. We actually require this kind of teachers who has better level of expertise than the students. Okay, the teachers should be able to answer completely a problem solving test in 1/3 of time. The students will have to do it, or in at least half time. Okay, if it is theory and problem, then half time they need to take and complete it off more than your student. And then the duration of the test must be such that all the learning outcomes and prescribed syllabus are reflected in your question paper. Okay, and then the teacher has to draft the test several days before he conducts and edit it until he or she thinks that it is perfect. So generally 3 weeks of time will be more than sufficient. I think you get a notice from your exam branches to submit your question papers. Now 3 weeks notice prior to your examination will go extremely good for a teacher to sit and work upon all these and to give a proper question paper. Okay, and then proof correction. We have discussed about this, right? Proof correction of typed questions is very much necessary. Okay, proof corrections are, we have a healthy practice in our college where on the day of examination, we generally give 2 to 3 sets of question paper, wherein the exam branch is given the control to select any one of that particular set. Okay, and we are called in the morning for proof correction, and that paper, after correcting it, again it will be sent for students. At the last level also, we have this proof correction in our college. Okay, so proof correction of that typed question papers is very much necessary to avoid typographical errors which often confuse the students. Okay, so proofreading is also very important for you all to implement, and it is essential to be added into your OBE. And then the best practice is to prepare a question bank, adding questions on a continuous basis. The question bank will be a great resource to the teacher, not only to set the question papers, but also to give assignments for practice. Okay, so you need to add up questions to it continuously. And then, now this is a proper question paper format wherein you give question and you describe what kind of answer is required. This is not required in all the cases. Description of question is not required in all cases. And then marks. What marks are you allocating? See here, if you're observing, question number 1 has 2 bits, A and B. Okay, instead of giving a one long question, it is always preferred to break your question into parts. Okay, so you break your question into parts and you give the mark to the student, following which you give the taxonomy level of the question. This is important, and this has to be mapped with CO, PO, and if you want to extend it to your POs, PSOs also, you can extend it, but COs and PO maximum gives you a good understanding. Okay, so this is how you need to give your question paper. Now, these are a few definitions wherein we had in the previous slide for the prelims. And then specifications table for setting a question paper in theory courses. And theory courses, how do you set your question paper? Okay, as I told you, you need to have this percentage of questions. Percentage of questions. You need to check for percentage of questions, and then you need to check for syllabus. Did you cover properly the entire syllabus? Then, have you taken care of all your learning outcomes? And if suppose I want to add, I can also add the level of questions. Okay, I can add what is the level of questions. Okay, is it a mediocre level or a difficult level? You can also add the level of questions. Now, coming to your question paper, you'll have question, syllabus and topic mapping. Which topic, which syllabus, which topic are you mapping this to? Then learning outcome. Then you mark your cognitive level. Then difficulty level. It is low, intermediate or high. You need to map it to the difficulty level. This is for your assessment of your question paper. This you don't give it to your students, but this is for your assessment of how you have prepared your question papers. Now this is the actual question paper format, wherein if you are giving them the mark for each question, Bloom's taxonomy level, COPO mapping, then that would go fine. And if you yourself want to assess your paper, and this is how you're going to assess your question paper for any theory course. And then rubrics, we have seen in the morning, right? Rubrics, most of you have enjoyed taking up rubrics. Okay, rubrics for assessment and evaluation of lab reports and projects. One of the sir was asking me, one of the participant, regarding projects. Okay, so now rubrics for your lab reports and projects. Now, in education terminology, rubric means a scoring guide which is used to evaluate the quality of students' constructed responses. Okay, you can evaluate. This is a pure and perfect assessment tool in OBE, rubrics. Though rubrics is not a part of my lecture, I had to include it because rubrics will help you in properly judging your student, which is why I have included. Okay, my session was actually on this topic, not on rubrics. Okay, but rubrics is one part which attracts me more, which is why I have included rubrics in my talk today. And rubrics will contain evaluative criteria, quality definitions, and scoring strategy. Why the student comes under that particular level. And then they are often presented in a table format and can be used by teachers when marking and by students when planning their work. It can be used equally by students and also by the faculty. And then a scoring rubric is an attempt to communicate expectations of quality, because quality is what all matters in your OBE, right? So communicate expectations of quality around the task. If a student is given a rubrics, then he can definitely work doing this, and this. I can stand on the top level, right? Then I will work for a top level. So student will have a definite idea of what is he supposed to do or he is expected to do with your assessment. And then a scoring rubric will communicate to the expectation of quality around a task. And then It is also used to describe consistent criteria for grading. Okay, a scoring rubric can also provide a basis for self-evaluation, reflection, and a peer review. So it is used for self-evaluation, and it is also useful for reflection. Means it gives you a clear picture of what your students are, right? It gives you a clear reflection of your students. You can evaluate yourself, you can get a clear reflection of the knowledge level of your students, and it can also be useful for a peer review. Means for the other person to review you, other person in sense the highest level, if they want to review the basis, then that is helpful for them. Then evaluation of a lab rubric. Now this is how your lab rubrics are made, wherein based on these points you will judge your students. Okay, now here you give a score of 4, 3, 2, 1 based on their level of performance, and this is the weightage for each level. Okay, 5 should be multiplied with this score. If suppose I see that the student is falling to a level of 2, then that 2 should be multiplied by this 5. Next whatever mark I get, that should be multiplied with this 10. Like this I need to take up. Okay, and then finally, if suppose I am evaluating this for a maximum marks of 100 and a minimum mark of 50, this is how I need to evaluate. Okay, I want to take up 5% of my total marks. I want to allot for abstract, and 10% marks I want to give for the background study, then 5% for the hypothesis, then procedure, then data presentation, then this mark for data analysis, interpretation, conclusion, summary, writing. So every part of his work is qualitatively judged. Okay, every part of his work will be qualitatively judged by a rubric. And then evaluation of performance and skill in each of the experiment is considered continuous evaluation. Okay, you have marks for continuous internal evaluation for labs. Okay, so that is what is mentioned here. Evaluation of performance and skill in each experiment is considered continuous evaluation. This is very important in promoting and enhancing the laboratory skills and experimentation skills, because student will not have a same mindset on all the lab sessions, right? Either you need to be strict. Though you're strict, he may imitate, he may act. Yes. So for them to at least maintain a level of consistency of proper working or experimentation in the labs, you need to have certain kind of enhancement, or you need to give them certain weightage for each and every task that they perform in the lab. Only then the students will work upon. And then there may be one lab test during the middle of semester and one lab test at the end of semester. Okay, generally we have a single lab internal examination followed by a single lab external examination, which doesn't fetch you much, because most of the part is completed and you have nothing to change in your students, and everything is over, and finally you will be having your final lab examination. But if suppose you have this internal evaluation broken up into 2 parts and split one for internal and one for external evaluation, then that will fetch you a clearly visible change in the mindset or attitude of students, wherein they will work with a very good energy throughout your lab courses till the end of your semester or the completion of your lab course. And then there may be one end semester examination with a weightage of 50%. So this is a generally suggestion, but you will be generally restricted to norms of your affiliating university or your institution. Now, and then evaluation of 2 lab tests or the end semester exam must include the skill component reflected in the result. Experimental procedure, measurement of data, analysis of data, interpretation of data, and conclusions with appropriate weightage for each based on the guidelines given under evaluation of lab reports. So each of them should have an appropriate weightage. And then now, how is that you grade the major projects of your students? Okay, this is just grading, not a rubric. Please understand, this is not a rubric. This is just a grading. criteria for your major projects. Now, how do you want to divide your student's project work? I just can't give him. Now, let us suppose I have a score of 500. I have a score of 100 for some project, whether it is a mini project. Now, let us suppose I take an example of mini project wherein I have some 50 marks or 100 marks based on the university you have. Okay, now that marks, how am I going to divide? Okay, here we have developed it based on, we have divided it based on the technical content, organization of report presentation, written presentation, his oral presentation. Means we are trying to cover every aspect of the student in order to constitute a holistic model or a holistic evaluation model that will actually give you what is the proper performance of your student. Okay, mastering all this, he shall score a good mark or a good weightage, a good grade point or anything as such. Okay, so these are the criteria which you will be evaluating for major projects. That is technical content. This is a general categorization. It again depends on the norms of university, norms of your institution. It is different. You can just tailor stitch it based on your requirement and you can use it aptly. And then notes regarding the projects. The highest possible mark is 93 and the lowest possible mark is 51. Let us suppose. Okay, the institution can prepare on a scale of, this is for a scale of 100. Okay, the institution can prepare the quality definitions of each of the criteria at different grades, A, B, C, D. Now, if you're observing this, here you have 3 grades wherein you can categorize students. 3 or 4 grades. Anything goes fine. And then if you keep increasing your grades, it will be of no use to you and it is an unnecessarily confusion, a long work for you to do, and that doesn't fetch you much. Okay, if you are incorporating these, that should surely give you an easy solution, a qualitative solution at a higher rate. Means with a small period of time, like in a small amount of time, you need to get the qualitative solution of whatever you're trying to implement. And then learning at higher cognitive levels like create is possible through projects. The project review has to be done once in every week by the concerned guide. At the guide level, the review has to go on at least once in a week. A few colleges, they make it a compulsion that they are supposed to at least visit their guide 2 to 3 times in a week. Okay, that depends again on the norms of your college. And then the weightage for the I'm sorry, 2 mid-course assessments with appropriate weightages may be done before the final evaluation and at the end of the semester. The weightages for the first mid-course assessment and the second mid-course assessment respectively may be 20% and 30%. Now you can finally come up to the summation of these two and then you can add this to your end semester which has got a 50% weightage. Okay, so you can divide it into 2 sections, like first part and the second part, like how you do your regular subject course evaluation. Like that, even you can divide your project evaluation wherein first part can be judged for 20% of marks, then rest half part can be judged for 30% marks, and final assessment wherein you can keep it for 50%, and summing up all these you will be having done this evaluation at the scale of 100% mark. And then assessment and evaluation of student seminars. How is that you assess and evaluate your student seminars? Now you have mid-course assessments and final evaluations. In your mid-course assessments, you don't have grading, whereas in your final evaluations, you do have a grading. And then what are the different guidelines that you are supposed to follow? Today, my whole day has gone in telling you the guidelines, and I hope all of you will respect my pains of explaining you these guidelines, and you need to implement. Only if you are implementing them, this FDP will be fruitful and helpful to you. Please try to implement them in your regular academics so that you can draw maximum benefit of it. Okay, and then guidelines. The students can choose any topic of study of their choice. which is not in the syllabus of any course, but relevant to the course or the program of our study. Then the mid-course assessments are intended to provide a feedback to the students in order to enable them to learn and improve. See, I'm telling you, you always need to have, when it is a progressive work, that is, you will have certain period of time to work upon something. When it is a progressive work, then you need to have an internal evaluation at formative stages. It is your wish where you divide it into 2 stages or 3 stages and you conduct a formative assessment at every stage. But conducting this formative assessment is equally important for you to know what is the status of your students, rather than finally at the end you conduct one test and you tell the student is not fit and he will fail. No, that is not the case. You need to conduct formative assessments. You need to give them enough chance, whether it is a seminar, whether it is a project, whether it is your subjective course, whatever it is, you need to have few internal assessments which are to be implemented at formative levels. You need to have formative assessments so that at every stage you will have a clear picture of what is the level of student, and finally at the end that should be helpful for you in drawing a conclusion regarding the status of your student, and that should be equally beneficial to your student wherein he can come up with good laurels. Okay, and then now the mid-course assessments are intended to provide feedback to the students in order to enable them to learn and improve the seminar presentation skills. Criticism should be specific, detailed, constructive, and compassionate. Now, when you give the criticism to your students, now when you comment upon their work, at the end of the day, finally you should comment upon their work suitably. They should make changes in their presentations, right? So that criticism should be specific. On what are you exactly commenting the students upon? Okay, what is the thing that you want them to be improved, and you need to give them a detailed picture. And then it should be constructive. You need to tell them, oh, you have done good, but still if you are working in this aspect or this angle, still you can become you can reach a higher proficiency level. Okay, so you need to constructively divert them or direct them to the specific path, and then you should be compassionate enough. Okay, now this is what makes the relation between a student and a teacher. You should be compassionate enough to understand what are his drawbacks and suitably correct them. It is not that always you show a grin to your students. Grit and grin is not encouraged. You need to have a positive mindset, positive face. Then alone students can approach you, because this is all teaching and learning process, wherein for him to develop on his skills, he need to come to you. There is no other go for him. Okay, now in the college I'm talking about, though student has several other ways online, in the college you are the way for him to properly direct him. So which is why you need to have a compassionate attitude towards your student. Okay, and then you all these should help students to improve, but not to find faults and reduce their self-efficacy. This you need to keep in mind. And then the assessment of every parameter of seminar presentation skills may be on a 4-point scale. Okay, this is a general scale wherein you use 4-point scale, and again it depends on you. Okay, some of you prefer 4-point, 3-point, some can go for 7-point scale. So it alone depends on the quality parameters that your college is following. Okay, and then key criteria, I have some disturbance somewhere. Key criteria for assessment of students' seminar presentation skills. Okay, now how do you assess the seminar presentation skills of your students? The chosen topic of the seminar was addressed clearly, the clarity, and then objectives of the seminar presentation was stated clearly. I can just one word in substitutes. I'm just telling you one word substitutes. Here I can tell clarity of the student. Then here the objective presentation, and then specific methods used in the study were presented clearly in logical progression. And then the results and conclusions were presented with clarity in an organized manner. And visual aids were produced well, appropriately used, and easily legible. The presentation was appropriately placed. The speaker responded to questions well in a calm, just a second, calm, forthright manner. Please hold on for a second, please, all of you. Well, sorry for the break. That was actually your technical team. And then, so this is how you assess the student seminar. And then, this is how you give them the grading. And finally, coming to the closure part, assessment and evaluation is an integral part of teaching and learning. Every institution must have clear guidelines for objective, valid, reliable assessments and evaluation of students' performance, whether it is a theory course, a lab course, a project work, student seminar, comprehensive viva voce examination, whether it is an industrial training or anything as such. Your institution needs to have a clear guidelines for framing an objective, then following your teaching learning sessions, and then the assessment and evaluation, and finally the feedback session. Then these guidelines must be transparent and be made available in the websites of an institution and explained to students by concerned teachers. The guidelines of institutions must be followed by all teachers with the same understanding of them in true spirit. The assessment and evaluation procedures are dynamic in nature, and these have to be revisited once in 2 years, and necessary modifications will have to be made. And these are the words of my sir, Professor Dr. Apparao Garu. He tells this: if justice is done to assessment and evaluation of students' performance by the teacher, that teacher contributes to the learning outcomes of students at higher cognitive levels. Such teachers will always be remembered by students. My tributes are to such great teachers. And thank you one and all. This marks the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Madam, will
Thank
you
you,
share
ma'am.
these slides to your WhatsApp group?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Excellent explanation, ma'am.
Thank
If
you so much.
participants, if anyone, if you're having any queries, you can ask madam now. Any queries, you can ask madam.
Madam, can you share the slides into WhatsApp group?
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. I will be sending this to sir once after you complete all your assignments. Alone, this will be sent, because your assignments all can be done easily through this. Only once after you complete all your assignments, this only this will be shared. Only this has a restriction, because if I give this to you, you will again frame your assignments with no effort of yours. So which is why after you complete your assignments, surely the coordinator sir will send this to you.
Okay, madam. Okay, madam. Thank you.
Okay, madam.
Any
Thank you.
queries? Okay, fine. So I request all the participants to kindly complete your assignments. That is first point. And second point I want to share is that there was a little technical glitch in the afternoon session regarding attendance. Do not get panicked. Okay, as you have given your morning attendance, definitely we have informed the backend team to kindly consider that as well. And even Madam Nusrat has dropped a message in the group stating that the form is open to give, and still those who have not given, we can give the attendance with the afternoon session. From tomorrow, I think it will not be like disturbed. I request all the participants to be active tomorrow, as is the last date of our FDP. And even for tomorrow's afternoon session, there is a validity program. Be available in the validity program, and you're supposed to even give the feedback, fill the feedback forms as well, which completes the process of our FDP. Thank you so much.
If I can just interrupt you for a minute, sir. All the participants are requested in the morning hour. I have given you one assignment. Okay, all of you please work on that rubrics, and tomorrow we shall discuss the same in the session, morning session.
Okay,
Along
ma'am.
with your assignment, we shall discuss the rubrics. Whatever three rubrics I have given you, you are supposed to complete those rubrics as assignments, whether in group or individual, and we shall discuss the same. Candidates shall present them.
Okay, ma'am.
Right.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Coordinator, thank you so much.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, fine.
Okay, madam.
Thank you, ma'am.